That a lot. Thank you, Chris. Man, I just want one of those cinnamon rolls and be just fine. 8:34. It's this week's Theater Thursday. We're going to turn to that now. And Labor Day weekend specifically, the people of a small Kansas town are busy preparing for their annual celebration when a young drifter comes into town, shaking up what is usually a very predictable place. And here with more on the Adobe Theater's production of Picnic and when you can see it on stage are Carolyn Hogan and Ken West. Good to have you both.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here this morning. Let's talk about what this play is all about. Can you give me kind of an idea, a preview of the overview of the situation?
Absolutely. It's set in 1953 in a small town in Kansas, and it takes place on Labor Day afternoon and evening, and then it ends the following morning. It's set in the backyard of two homes that are lived in by a woman who's caring for her elderly mother, and the other house has a woman who's raising her teenage daughters by herself. And a drifter comes into town and shakes up what people expected their lives to be.
And you call this a drama, right? That's kind of the overarching theme here.
It is a drama, but it also has some comedic moments in it. So there's some very poignant scenes, there's some very sad scenes, and some very funny scenes. So it's a combination.
You both are in this production, correct?
That's right.
Ken,
Yes.
what role do you play?
I play Howard Bevins, and Howard is a owner of a small shop in a neighboring town. He comes to town and socializes. And Howard is a gentleman who's been unattached for a number of years, and he likes it that way. I think he's a friendly guy and a good-hearted soul.
And you, Carol?
I'm Rosemary Sidney. I'm an old maid school teacher at the local high school, and I'm not thrilled about being an old maid, so as it goes through the play, we realize that I have my hooks out for Howard.
Ah, okay. What attracted both of you? I'm just curious why you were attracted to this production, specifically Ken.
I like the time frame and the location of a small town. I enjoy things like older, historical perhaps, so that's very interesting. And it's got a nice mix of some comedy, drama, and the characters remind me of people I've known over the years. They're very interesting.
Carolyn, what attracted you to the play?
It's the same thing with Ken. When I read the script, there were a lot of people that reminded me of the small southern town that I grew up in. And Rosemary is just a wonderful character. She's got a lot of dimensions to her that have been fun to play.
I know you mentioned the sort of the comedic parts of the show. Are there favorite moments that you have that you might want to point out for people who might be interested in what could draw me to this production?
Well, there are a lot of great times in the show, very enjoyable, but there's one that I particularly like, and we're all sitting outside and start to let our hair down just a little bit. There's a little bit of dancing, some cutting up, and I find that to be my favorite part.
We've talked about it, and we don't want to give away the story.
Right.
So that's why it's so hard for us to say what our favorite part is. One of the early favorite parts is when the drifter does come into town, and we're starting to get to know this young, virile, handsome, shirtless kid.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question. What about the family? Is this a family play?
You know, it's not suited, I don't think, for young children, only because I don't think it would hold their attention.
Okay.
But I would say later elementary on up would enjoy it.
Safe for them.
It's a good learning play because it teaches us what life was really like back in the early 50s, and we can see how far society has come. You know, being an old maid now isn't what it was in the early 50s. People don't drift in and knock on your front door wanting a meal in exchange for doing some odd jobs. So it's a learning experience, but not for the young kids.
Is there a good message in the end, too? Do you think that's kind of the underlying message of the whole production?
To me, I think the message is that no matter what you expect, that can change. And I think that's an interesting way that it's applied to many of the characters in the show.
Well, the production is called Picnic, and I'm sure there's a reason for that, so we're going to find out in the production. It's at the Adobe Theater. Is there a website for more information?
There's a website,
and tickets are available?
adobetheater.org.
Great, and that's a good way to get it, adobetheater.org. Tickets, the 7th, I should say, through the 30th this month. Look for that just in advance of Labor Day, which is where it's set. KRQE.com is another good resource for you, too, if you'd like showtime and ticket information. Thanks both for being here this morning.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to hearing more about it as folks come and see it. We'll be right back.